Hello and welcome to the Free Black Girl Podcast, a space for joyful healing, learning, and collective liberation. My name is Najma Ahmed, and you are listening to a series of mini podcast episodes entitled Lessons from Liberation. I shared in my first season of the podcast all the ways in which I got free from unhealed trauma, people pleasing, and really from any person, place, or thing causing me to betray myself. Now, these lessons from liberation are based on what I learned last year after asking myself, now what? I started a blog during that time called The Freedom Pages, and I'm sharing what I reflected on in real time. In last week's episode, we talked about taking off the mask and welcoming our gifts. If we are not conscious of our patterns from how we were raised, when we take off the mask and see the gifts that were waiting on us, our inner child can feel bad that it took so long for us to figure it out. Or we can feel like we have to constantly be in this state of enlightenment to be worthy of our gifts. Let's jump into this week's lesson. This week, at the time of writing this blog last year, I've been thinking a lot about compassion, about what it really means to care for ourselves, to heal our inner child, and to reparent ourselves through that compassion. I want you to think about how you were raised. Was your love tied to your achievements? Were you celebrated for good grades, for keeping a clean room, for staying out of trouble, for being easy to raise? And then what happened when things got messy? When you weren't perfect? When you cried? Whose voice do you hear in your head now? Is it a parent, a caregiver, a teacher? I realized a while back that as an adult, I'd internalized these voices. When I wasn't perfect, when life got messy, I wasn't always kind to myself. I didn't know how to be. I measured my worth by how well I performed, how much I achieved, how together everything looked on the outside. Then one day, while talking to my therapist, something clicked. I'd been so excited about a new idea I wanted to bring to life. I was ready to go, but at the same time, I felt anxious and stuck. It was a pattern I noticed over and over: big vision, bright idea, and then somehow it would be hard to start, or I'd delay, or I'd freeze. Before that therapy session, in a meditation, I experienced a visualization. I actually saw myself racing ahead, chasing opportunity, chasing healing, chasing the next thing. And behind me, I was dragging little me, a younger version of myself, dragging her by the arm. But she was digging in her heels, falling out, having a whole tantrum. She was screaming. So I stopped. I sat down on the floor, crossed my legs, and held her. That's where the logo of my podcast came from, by the way. I asked her what was wrong, and she said, I just need a minute. I'm scared. I don't know where we're going, and we're running so fast. I can't keep up. I'm still growing. That moment with myself, that visualization, it transformed me. I realized I was living on a timeline of lack and scarcity. I was rushing ahead because I was terrified that if I didn't hurry, I might miss it. I don't even know what it was, but it felt like something just out of reach, something I couldn't afford to lose. That was a few years ago, and I'm sitting with it again now, reminding myself how compassion might be one of the biggest, hardest, most necessary lessons of my 7-year healing journey. Because think about it. If you can't have compassion for yourself, how can you truly have it for anyone else? How do you talk to yourself in those quiet moments when no one's watching? When you look in the mirror, when you share something you poured your heart into and it isn't received the way you hoped, when your healing feels slow, when you stumble, when you doubt yourself, That's where the compassion needs to live. I used to think I was judgmental. I took the Myers-Briggs personality assessment for the first time when I was like 16 years old, and I got INTJ, and it stayed that way for much of my adult life. The J in the assessment stands for judging. If you didn't know, I'm also a Virgo. I just felt you roll your eyes. Chill out. So the judgment accusations, I was not beating them, let's say. But what I've learned is what we see as our personality is basically the lens that our past experiences, our inner and outer experiences, that they shape for us. I wasn't so much judging others. I was seeing in them the things I was afraid of in myself. The things I worked so hard to suppress, to hide, to heal, to pretend weren't still living in me. The deeper I go in my healing, the more I realize some of us have been carrying generational trauma so heavy we feel like we're playing catch up as we release them. And that's okay, because there's no common finish line. Compassion means not measuring yourself against anyone else's journey. It means loving yourself through the messy, unfinished parts. Compassion means choosing kindness over perfection. It means celebrating yourself just for still being here, for still moving forward, for the sake of the journey and not the destination. Compassion means listening to your inner child when they say, I just need a minute. And I'm learning to give little me that minute, many minutes, to tell her she's not lazy, she's not broken, she doesn't need more discipline. She needs me to stay devoted to her safety, to bring her a life of joy and wonder, to move at a pace she can keep up with. And as she grows, her little legs will too, and we'll move together. Compassion isn't a finish line either. It's a practice. It's a devotion. And I'm choosing it again and again. After writing that blog and in the last year, this has come up for me actually right now. Recently, how it has come up for me, I had convinced myself that in order for me to move forward, in order to leap again into my new life, that I had to let go of every single thing that was weighing me down. And while it's true that we do need to release, in my mind, the things that were weighing me down were the things that I was using to numb myself so that I can endure the pain that I was avoiding on my journey. Anything from food to spending money, scrolling on my phone, to, even though I don't really drink like that anymore, but to weed or to whatever it is, to whatever that thing is that we're fixating on. And I thought that's what I had to let go of. And so that was my directive, that I had to do this. If I don't do this, if I don't let go of every single thing, then I won't be able to move to the next level. But recently it just hit me that those things are all just telling me that there is still something else that needs to be healed. I'm trying to take away the things that I'm using as medicine without addressing whatever wound still remains, whatever infection is still present. And so in order to get to that, you have to have compassion. You have to be able to hold yourself with care to really get at the wound and clean it out. And that's what I realized, that at the root of what I was needing to release was the shame. The shame spiral around the things that I was using to be able to survive, and the shame that I had attached to it, and it created a cycle of I have to release this thing so that I can be perfect enough to allow my new life to come in, to show and prove that I am healed now, that I'm not bad. I was operating as if something's wrong with me that I still needed to fix. And if I haven't fixed it yet, then I'm not capable of moving into my new life. And so we get stuck and we get frozen. But what I realized was that the new life is already here. It's already happening. You just get to decide how you want to navigate it. how you want to experience it. The easiest route, probably in the path of least resistance, is yes, being sober, completely enlightened, completely tapped in and connected and tuned in. It's not the only path, though. And you're not going to reach that overnight. But that doesn't mean that you stop. That doesn't mean that you don't move forward, because you're also not who or where you used to be. You've already let go of so many things. But the final boss was always the shame. It was that voice in your head, if you grew up like I did, the judgment, the strictness, the oftentimes left alone to figure it out, with the highest expectations and consequences if you don't. And so little me needs to be compassionately held now to get what she did not get when she was growing up. When she felt that she had to be perfect in order to receive love, to receive support, to receive care, to receive nurturing. But when you are learning compassion and giving it to yourself, you're able to look at those parts of you that do need more balance, and being honest about it, that do need your attention, that do need your devotion, but you're able to hold those parts without judgment. You hear people say that they're at war with themselves and that we're our own worst enemy. We are our own best friend. We are our own biggest fans. I posted the other day that I want to live a life that feels like my grandmother is standing on the porch with her hands on her hips, watching me, smiling. That's the kind of love and compassion that I want to give to myself, because I know that my love for me, that the love that my ancestors have for me, transcends anything that I think I'm not doing perfectly. And it has been proven to me over and over and over again. And the relief that I felt, like it threw the shackles off of my creativity. It released the fear, because it was no longer a matter of, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do all the time perfectly, then it's all over. Because who can maintain under that level of stress? Of course, my nervous system was like, hey, wait a minute. This is a lot of pressure. Why are we putting all this pressure on ourselves? And I don't even think I realized that I was doing it, because it's so subtle, because of the voices in our heads that we heard growing up, or the lack of voices to counterbalance those thoughts, those stories that we tell ourselves about our worthiness. I want you to journal these questions. How were you shown compassion when you were growing up? Do you give yourself compassion now? What does a compassionate mother feel like? What does a compassionate father feel like? How do they act towards their children? How can you give those things to yourself? Where are you still waiting to be perfect before you feel worthy enough of your gifts? Thank you for joining. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Leave me a comment and a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. I really hope these lessons from liberation help you to grow, as you being in community with me helps me to grow. And as always, I want this to be a conversation. So leave me a comment. How do you define compassion?